Honora Kelly entered the world in Boston, Massachusetts around 1857. Her beginnings were far from idyllic or stable. She was born into a family deeply troubled by hardship and mental instability. Her father, Peter Kelly, was an Irish immigrant known for his eccentric behavior and violent temper. Whispers circulated that he was slowly descending into madness. Some said he had even sewn his own eyelids shut in a fit of insanity. This chaotic environment offered little comfort or security for a young child. The weight of this dysfunction would cast a long shadow over Honora's early years, shaping the woman she would become. The fragile Kelly family unit soon shattered completely. Honora's mother, Bridget, died of tuberculosis when Honora was just a young girl. Left with a father incapable of providing care, Honora and her sister Delia faced a bleak future. Peter Kelly, overwhelmed and perhaps unhinged, eventually took his young daughters to the Boston Female Asylum. This institution was an orphanage, a place for destitute and abandoned girls. Honora was stripped of her family, however flawed, and thrust into the impersonal care of the state. The experience of abandonment and institutional life undoubtedly left deep scars on her developing psyche. Life in the Boston Female Asylum was regimented and likely harsh. In 1864, at the tender age of about 7, Honora Kelly was indentured. She was placed in the household of Mrs. Anne C. Toppan of Lowell, Massachusetts. Though she lived with the Toppans for many years, she was never formally adopted by them. Instead, she took their surname, becoming Jane Toppan. Her status in the household was ambiguous, hovering somewhere between a daughter and a servant. This lack of clear belonging and genuine affection likely fostered feelings of resentment and a sense of being an outsider, further warping her view of relationships and human connection. During her time with the Toppans, Jane was described by some as bright and generally well-behaved. However, underlying currents of a more disturbing nature may have already been present. There were anecdotal accounts of her telling elaborate lies and engaging in petty deceptions. She was reportedly a good student but also prone to bouts of anger and strange fascinations. These early indicators, perhaps dismissed at the time, hinted at the profound psychological turmoil brewing beneath the surface. The seeds of the notorious angel of death were sown in these formative years of neglect, instability, and hidden discontent. In 1885, Jane Toppan made a decision that would provide her with the perfect cover for her future crimes. She chose to pursue a career in nursing. She began her training at Cambridge Hospital in Massachusetts. Nursing was a respected profession, one that demanded trust and compassion. Jane, on the surface, appeared to fit the role well. She was often described by patients and colleagues as cheerful and hardworking. This affable demeanor earned her the nickname Jolly Jane. No one suspected the darkness that lurked behind her seemingly kind eyes and helpful hands. Her ability to project an image of caring competence was a key element of her deadly success. However, beneath this veneer of professionalism, Jane soon began her sinister experiments. She became fascinated with the potent drugs kept under lock and key in the hospital. Morphine and atropine, powerful narcotics and anticholinergics became her tools. She started to manipulate the dosages prescribed to her patients. She would administer enough to bring them to the brink of death, then sometimes try to revive them, playing God with their lives. These early acts were not mercy killings, they were explorations of power and control, rehearsals for the more extensive horrors to come. Her colleagues noted a high number of patient deaths on her watch, but initially, few suspected deliberate foul play. The motivations behind Jane Toppan's actions were complex and chilling. She later confessed that she derived a morbid thrill from watching her patients hover between life and death. The power she wielded over them was intoxicating. There was also a disturbing element of perverted intimacy in her actions. She reportedly enjoyed holding her victims, feeling their life ebb away while in her arms. This desire to be physically close to death, to orchestrate it and witness it intimately, points to a profoundly disturbed psychological state. Her nursing uniform became a costume, masking a predator who found satisfaction in the ultimate betrayal of trust. After being dismissed from Cambridge Hospital in 1889 following suspicions about her handling of medications and patient deaths, Jane Toppan transitioned into private nursing. This move offered her even greater freedom and less oversight. She worked for numerous wealthy families in Massachusetts, caring for the elderly and the infirm. It was during this period that her killing spree escalated dramatically. She could now select her victims with greater ease and administer her poisons without the scrutiny of a hospital environment. Families, grateful for her seemingly dedicated care, unknowingly invited a murderer into their homes, entrusting their loved ones to the angel of death. Jane Toppan's preferred method of murder was poisoning. She developed a sophisticated understanding of various drugs, particularly morphine and its counterpart, atropine. She often used a carefully calibrated cocktail of these substances. Morphine would depress the respiratory system, leading to a slow suffocation. Atropine, in certain doses, could counteract some of morphine's effects or cause its own set of fatal symptoms, including delirium and cardiac arrest. She knew how to administer these drugs to mimic natural illness or to create a specific dying experience that she found stimulating. Her clinical knowledge was perversely twisted into a tool for murder, making her an exceptionally dangerous and insidious killer. The psychological aspects behind Jane Toppan's actions were deeply disturbing. She confessed to deriving a distinct, almost sexual pleasure from watching her victims die. She found excitement in their final struggles, in the fading of their life force. Her desire was not merely to end a life, but to be an active participant in that process, to control it, and to be intimately present at the moment of death. She would often lie in bed with her victims, holding them close as they succumbed to the poisons she had administered. This macabre intimacy was a hallmark of her crimes, revealing a profound derangement and a complete lack of empathy for human suffering. Jane possessed a highly manipulative personality which allowed her to continue her killing spree for so long. She could appear empathetic, kind, and incredibly dedicated to her patients. This facade fooled families, doctors, and colleagues alike. People saw Jolly Jane, the competent nurse, not the cold-blooded killer lurking beneath. She was adept at gaining trust and deflecting suspicion. When questions arose, she could often talk her way out of trouble or shift blame. This cunning ability to deceive those around her was as much a weapon as the poisons she used, enabling her to operate undetected for years. Her victims were not limited to the elderly or terminally ill, though they were frequent targets due to their vulnerability. Jane Toppan also murdered people she knew personally, including her landlords, friends, and even her own foster sister, Elizabeth Toppan Brigham. Anyone who became an inconvenience or simply an object of her twisted desires could become a victim. There was no clear pattern in terms of relationship, only opportunity and a cold, calculating decision to kill. Her motivations seemed to shift from a desire for control to financial gain in some instances, though the core compulsion always appeared to be the thrill of the act itself. The beginning of the end for Jane Toppan came with the deaths in the Davis family of Catawba, Massachusetts in the summer of 1901. Jane had been hired to care for Alden Davis's wife, Mattie. After Mattie died, Jane remained in the household and in quick succession, Alden Davis himself and his two daughters, Minnie and Genevieve, also perished under her care. The sheer number of deaths in one family in such a short period raised alarms. Alden Davis's surviving relatives, particularly his son-in-law, Captain Leonard C. Increasing, grew deeply suspicious. He could not accept that an entire healthy family could be wiped out so quickly by natural causes. Captain Increasing, along with other concerned family members and local authorities, initiated an investigation. The bodies of the Davis family members were exhumed. Toxicological examinations were performed, a relatively new forensic science at the time. The results were conclusive. They had been poisoned with lethal doses of morphine and atropine. With this irrefutable evidence, the authorities moved quickly. Jane Toppan was arrested on October 29, 1901 in Amherst, New Hampshire, where she had gone to stay with a friend. The Angel of Death was finally in custody, her reign of terror brought to an abrupt halt. Once apprehended, Jane Toppan began to confess. Her admissions were shocking in their scope and detachment. She calmly recounted her crimes, eventually confessing to at least 31 murders, though she hinted that the true number might be closer to 100. Her trial, which began in Barnstable, Massachusetts in June 1902, became a media sensation. Newspapers across the country ran lurid headlines, dubbing her the Angel of Death and detailing her horrific methods. The public was both fascinated and horrified by the accounts of a nurse who used her position of trust to become one of America's most prolific female serial killers. Ultimately, Jane Toppan was found not guilty by reason of insanity. The jury, swayed by expert testimony regarding her mental state and perhaps by the sheer incomprehensibility of her crimes, concluded she was not legally responsible for her actions. On June 23, 1902, she was committed for life to the Taunton Insane Hospital, now Taunton State Hospital. She spent the remainder of her days within its walls, reportedly telling attendants that she was not mad, but bad. Jane Toppan died in the institution on August 17, 1938, at the age of 81. Her chilling story remains a dark chapter in American criminal history, a terrifying reminder of how evil can hide behind a mask of kindness.